As a species, we became very self-absorbed, and we began to only see our own needs, our own viewpoints, our own experiences, and everybody else's experiences were not relevant to our own well-being. And because we cut ourselves off so severely from everybody around us, that allows us to ignore other people's suffering. This hard shell is a lower vibrational reality of who and what we are. Hi everybody, welcome to the Light Journal podcast. I'm Jamie Perez. Today I'd like to talk about a vision I had while I was meditating this morning. In the vision there was a jar and it was full of marbles. The marbles represented humanity and the jar represented the universe per se. And I saw a marble be pulled out and subjected to a higher frequency, higher vibration. It cracked the marble. Then I saw that same marble being subjected to an even higher vibration, an even higher frequency, and it cracked into pieces, then into shards, then into sand, into powder, and finally it dispersed into almost a quantum field-like energy. And Spirit gave me to understand that this is what's happening to us in our society today. And it's not just happening to us, it's happening to the earth, the planets, our non-terrestrial friends, and to all the animals, plants, everything. We're all undergoing this same vibrational shift. But the vision was specifically for understanding what's happening to us as humans. But keep in mind that it's actually a bigger picture shift, and it's definitely an earth transformation and not just a human transformation. This is what I was given to understand. The marbles represent our identity, our personality, our ego, our form, our worldview, our reality. And all the marbles in the jar are touching up against other marbles in the jar, but anybody who has that jar of marbles knows that only a few marbles can touch the other marbles, and even then, it's just a very small touch, very insignificant touch, because the rounded, hard surfaces don't allow for significant contact. This is an important point, because it's showing that as humanity developed this hard shell, it made it very difficult for people to interact beneath the surface. This hard surface allows for an external connection, but it doesn't touch the heart. It doesn't allow for any sort of psychic connection, empathy, or any sort of genuine, intimate connection. It's mostly just about physicality, having things, for example, or taking things, meeting your survival needs. That really is the feeling that goes along with that hard-shelled marble, and how it can only touch other hard shell marbles in just minute ways. Realities just were not mixing together. Everybody's experiences were almost as though they're on separate worlds. As a species, we became very self-absorbed, and we began to only see our own needs, our own viewpoints, our own experiences, and everybody else's experiences were not relevant to our own well-being. And because we cut ourselves off so severely from everybody around us, that allows us to ignore other people's suffering. It allows us to only behave in a way which is beneficial to us. So if empathy is beneficial, then empathy is offered. If empathy does not benefit us, then empathy is not offered, that sort of thing. In any case, this hard shell is a lower vibrational reality of who and what we are. And as humanity has evolved, it has lifted up very slowly, but it has been lifting up to higher and higher levels of vibration. And as it shifts up, something amazing happens to that hard-shelled, solid marble. The higher it gets in vibration, the more vibrational and frequency pressure is applied to that marble. And it does what a marble does when it's subjected to higher frequencies and vibrations. It cracked. The cracking open was one of the best things that could ever happen. When we crack open, we have a lot more surface area to touch others, to experience, at least on a minimal level, other people's perspectives of reality, to experience more of a genuine connection with other people. Because it's not just that round hole, it's now been divided into two. And you have flat, jagged surfaces on one side and the rounded shell on the other. And that just opens up a massive amount of opportunities to connect with other people. So that's a vibrational shift. And then generations and generations passed. I don't have a time frame for this, but eventually humanity began to lift above their existing frequency to a higher level. And at this new frequency, the pressure applied crushed it a little bit more, and now the marble is a bunch of shards. The shards provide a lot more area of contact with others who are equally being subjected to that vibrational pressure, that frequency. And as a result, people began to see one another more accurately, sort of thing. And then it moves into the shards, and in the shards it's more contact area, and suddenly the level of intimacy is enhanced. Because if there's a bunch of people who have been reduced to shards, there's a lot of parts of us that can experience the reality of other people. We can see our commonalities. We can see our neighbors as just mirrors of ourselves. We can begin to recognize that there is value in people who are different, things that are different, in places that are different, in lifestyles that are different. We begin to recognize that diversity actually is what makes life work really, really well. If you study nature, it becomes very clear. Nature thrives when there is a multitude of different creatures, different insects, different plants, different surfaces, different everything. All those differences are what creates a thriving environment. And that's what happens at the shard level. Everybody begins to see the value that everybody else is providing to the welfare of the whole community. I believe that's where our society is now. We as a species have developed greater and greater levels of empathy. Now, I recognize, at least in the United States, there's been a concerted pushback on those who do not perceive empathy as a valuable trait, and I am sorry for it. But they are actually the minority. And that view cannot hold as we are being ready to shift up to another frequency, another level of vibration. It is through the moving up in the vibrations that those who stay at the lower vibrations become more and more at odds with our evolutionary progression. And so at the shard level, men are beginning to understand women, women are starting to understand men in a more compassionate and accepting way. The different races are beginning to see one another in a more compassionate and understanding way. The different orientations that people are experiencing, they're beginning to be seen in a more understanding way. These are all evidences of us being at that shard level. We have so many surfaces now that enable us to see, hear, feel, sense, and know other people in a deeper, more intimate manner. But see, we're getting ready to do another shift. We're getting ready to move up to another higher frequency. And this higher frequency is going to take us into that granular sand level. At the sand level, we still retain our identity, our ego, our personality, our form, but yet it's a more subtle thing. Right now, in the shard level, we still have a lot of sharp edges. We still have a lot of me left in it. But when you are reduced down to the granular level, yes, there's self-identity, yes, there's ego, personality, and yes, there's form, but it has been minimized in favor of the harmonious whole. It has been turned from a me focus into a community focus. And one of the ways to see that is if you look at the sand on a beach. All those granules of sand, when the water washes in, it feels the coolness on the sand. All the sand feels it. And then as the water retreats, it feels the tug of the water as it retreats out because it's experiencing, everything is experiencing it more as a communal experience and less as just an I experience. So yes, there is singular identity, but it is kind of making way and moving towards a more inclusive understanding of what I am. I am not me, I am all of us. What benefits me benefits the whole. What is detrimental to me is detrimental to the whole. That is what more of that communal, granular, sand-based reality looks like. But that's not the last vibrational shift we're going to undergo, but I believe that's the next level based on the vision that I was given. Now, after the granular level, we are going to be then moving and shifting up into the higher vibration, higher frequency that crushes the sand into powder. At the powder level, it is communal. The self-identity is gone. The I, me, my is gone. At that powdered level of reality, it is all about us, we, our, or really, yeah, I say that, and at the same time, it's almost like the all-inclusive I. Because at the powdered level of reality, we no longer see ourselves as separate. That distinctiveness is gone. That personal identity, the personal ego, the personal form, it's just gone. And that is that higher level that we're going to be attaining later on in the process of our evolution. But see, that's not even the highest level. That was the thing that was so fascinating about this vision. There was a level above that, because when we move into the higher level, even above that, the powder is crushed into like a molecular quantum level even. level of consciousness, and there's just consciousness. There's not even group identity. I mean, that just doesn't exist. All there is the source, the originating energy. All the striving, all the identity, whether it's group or personal, all that's gone. And that's the highest level of vibration that we're going to reach. And at that point, there is no I anymore. There's no we, there's no I, there's none of that. It's just being. I find that beautiful. And I find that very encouraging. But one of the things I wanted to point out, though, is I find it very intriguing that this literal marble process where you expose it to higher vibrations and higher frequencies, it will crack. It literally will crack. And if you keep putting more and more vibration, more and more frequency on this marble, it will disintegrate down to the levels as I expressed. And what I find fascinating about that is all the earthquakes we've been having on the earth. And based on other visions that the Spirit has given me, where the earth is basically shuffling off her skin, kind of like a snake shuffles out of its old skin, or a locust moves out of its own skin. That is the feeling I get for what the earth is doing. And that also fits within the idea of this higher vibrational shift. And with each shifting, we are being cleansed of more and more of the illusion. But ultimately, our destination is to take us back to the source from which we came, to be reabsorbed back into the source without identity, without group or individual self. It's just all gone. That's where we initially emerged, and that's where we're going back to. And that's the process I was shown. And I personally find it beautiful. I find it absolutely beautiful. And I hope you do too. And I hope you find this an encouragement so that when you do see the physical manifestations of the spiritual reality, which would be like the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and maybe even in your own life, you're seeing things crumble away. You're seeing false beliefs and unbeneficial relationships and things just kind of crumble away. I hope you'll remember that this is actually a physical manifestation of that spiritual reality of returning to the truth of who and what we are. So blessings on your journey, everyone, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.